I was 18 years old, living the typical life of an English college student. Carefree. Or at least, I thought I was. I had no religion, no spiritual anchor. I floated through life. I had Muslim friends, sure. I saw them fasting during Ramadan, and I'd join them for iftar sometimes, mostly for the food, if I'm honest. I'd watch them pray, fascinated but distant. It was their thing, not mine. I respected it, but I never felt the pull. Years passed like that, just normal life. Work, friends, the weekend rush. Islam wasn't on my radar. It was a background noise I rarely tuned into. Then came that day in town. It was completely random. I was just walking down the high street when a group of people handed me some leaflets, dawah pamphlets. Usually I'd toss these things in the nearest bin without a second glance, but this time they gave me a small book, too. I don't know why, but I kept it. I took it home and tossed it on my bedside table. It sat there for days, gathering dust. But one night, when the house was quiet and I couldn't sleep, I picked it up, just out of boredom, really. I started reading, and I couldn't stop. It wasn't like reading a textbook. It felt personal. It spoke about God in a way I'd never heard before. One, indivisible, the creator of everything. It made sense, a terrifying, beautiful kind of sense. It sparked something in me, a curiosity that quickly turned into an obsession. I needed to know more. But where do you start? I felt lost in a sea of information. I went to bookstores, scanning the religious sections. Everything looked so dense, so complicated. I bought books that were way over my head, full of terminology I couldn't pronounce. I felt like I was trying to learn quantum physics without knowing basic math. I remember finding a book specifically about the Islamic creed. It was simpler, clearer. I even bought a children's book about Islam. That sounds funny now, doesn't it? A grown woman reading a kid's book. But that's exactly what I needed, the basics, the 5 pillars, the story of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It was like learning the alphabet of a language my soul already seemed to remember. I turned to YouTube. I must have watched hundreds of videos on how to pray. I'd pause, rewind, try to mimic the movements in the privacy of my bedroom. Allahu Akbar. Bow down. Prostrate. It felt clumsy at first. My knees creaked. My pronunciation was terrible. But every time my forehead touched the floor, the chaos in my mind quieted down. Just for a moment. But with the peace came the fear, the panic. If this is the truth, what does that mean for me? What does it mean for my life? The thoughts swirled like a storm. My family, what would they say? My friends, would they leave me? And the lifestyle changes, oh God, the changes. No more alcohol, no more pork, smoking, I'd have to quit. And the hijab? Me? In a scarf? I looked in the mirror and tried to imagine it. I couldn't. I loved my hair. I loved my jeans. I loved fitting in. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. One step forward meant falling into the unknown. One step back meant returning to a life that suddenly felt empty. I wrestled with myself for weeks. I tried to bargain with God. Maybe I can just believe in my heart and not change anything on the outside? But deep down, I knew. I knew that truth isn't something you can pick and choose. It's all or nothing. One evening, I sat on the edge of my bed. The room was dark. I was tired of fighting. I was tired of being scared. I took a deep breath and I whispered the words. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulallah. I waited for the earth to shake. It didn't. But inside, the storm just stopped. For the first few weeks, I was in a bubble, a spiritual high. Everything looked brighter. I felt clean. I felt new. I felt held. But bubbles burst. The reality set in. I was a Muslim now, but I was a lonely Muslim. My old friends didn't get it. Why can't you just have one drink? Why are you dressing like that? I started drifting away from them, not out of malice, just out of difference. But I didn't have any Muslim friends to replace them. I felt like an alien. I'd walk down the street in my new, clumsy hijab, wrapped too tight or slipping off, and I felt everyone's eyes on me. I was terrified someone would say salam to me because I didn't know how to reply properly. I didn't know the lingo. Someone would say, Mashallah or Subhanallah, and I'd just freeze, smiling awkwardly, hoping I wasn't being rude. I was a baby again, a 20-something-year-old infant. I had to relearn how to eat, how to dress, how to speak, how to wash. It was exhausting, and it was incredibly lonely. One night, scrolling through social media, desperate for connection, I saw an ad. Steady Steps, a course for new Muslims. I stared at the screen. A support group? For people like me? I signed up immediately. But when the day came, I almost didn't go. I sat in my car outside the venue for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I looked down at myself. Ripped jeans, a loose scarf thrown over my head. I looked like a mess. They're going to judge me, I thought. They're going to tell me I'm doing it wrong. I'm not Muslim enough for them. I almost turned the key to drive away. But something, maybe that same pull that led me to the book, made me open the car door. I walked in, my heart hammering against my ribs, and I was met with smiles, warm, genuine smiles. "Welcome, sister. Come in, sit down." There were icebreakers, silly games, laughter. I looked around the room. There were women of all ages, all backgrounds, some in full abayas, some in jeans like me, some who had converted decades ago, some who had taken their Shahada yesterday. I listened to their stories, stories of rejection, stories of finding peace, stories of struggle. I wasn't alone. That realization hit me harder than the conversion itself. I am not alone. I've been going to that group for 2 years now. Every week, it is my lifeline. I can have the worst week, struggling with prayer, feeling isolated at work, fighting with my family, and I walk into that room and the weight lifts. We share everything. We talk about the awkward moments, like accidentally eating gelatin or forgetting which way Mecca is. We laugh about our hijab disasters. We cry about the family members who still won't speak to us. We are a family bound not by blood, but by belief. Being a new Muslim, it's not a fairy tale. It's hard. It's really, really hard. You feel like you're constantly catching up. You feel like an imposter sometimes. You miss your old life sometimes. Not the lack of faith, but the ease of it. The simplicity of just blending in. But then you pray. You put your forehead on the ground and you remember. You remember why you're here. You remember that you chose this. You chose to wake up. I am still learning. I still get nervous in public with my hijab. I still mix up my Arabic words. But I am growing. Like a child learning to walk, I stumble, I fall, but I keep getting back up. Because for the first time in my life, I know exactly where I'm going. And I know, deeply and truly, that I am never walking alone.